Hello and welcome to the SpaceX Transporter-2 rocket launch. We're back for the second day to see if today we can have a successful launch of this mission. As you probably know, if you were watching our live stream yesterday, the mission was delayed and we're back today to hopefully have a successful mission. My name's Michael and I'm going to be your host for this live stream. I'm joined today by Arnold, our systems engineer. Arnold, great to have you with us.
Good to be here, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks very much for joining us. Arnold's going to be my technical sidekick during this broadcast. And thank you also for joining NanoAvionics for this event, where as a small satellite manufacturer and mission integrator, we have 2 satellites which are going to be on board this mission for our customers. We're also joined today by our robot friend. Arnold, tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, it's actually quite a story. So our CEO, Vytenis Buzas, he was doing an internship in NASA, and when he was there, he actually got his robot and brought it back with him back to Lithuania and started NanoAvionics. So this robot actually has been with us since day one, so it's our lucky charm. We actually have quite a collection of these robots for NanoAvionics are actually these robots and space cats, so literally that's what drives us.
Fantastic. Let's hope that it brings us all the luck and good fortune that we need in today's launch. So, as we mentioned, there are 2 satellites that we've built for this mission today. One of the satellites is the Tiger II. This is a dedicated mission for OQ Technology. OQ Technology are the world's first 5G Internet of Things satellite operator. They provide global cellular Internet of Things and machine-to-machine communication solutions through satellites in low Earth orbit. The Tiger II mission is the latest addition to their growing constellation of nanosatellites, and it's the second mission that's being done in collaboration with NanoAvionics. The second satellite we'll be talking about today is the D2 Atlacom-1. This is a rideshare mission. It's part of an international collaboration led by an international consortium and its partners, which is called Hyperactive. The satellite hosts a hyperspectral imager, a new high-gain X-band antenna, and an upgraded X-band downlink transmitter, as well as a novel electric propulsion system. The consortium partners for this international collaboration are Dragonfly Aerospace from South Africa, SpaceJLTZ from Mexico, and NanoAvionics US as a supplier. And we'll be talking more about these satellites and what they'll do in space throughout this broadcast. Now, I'd like to give you a quick rundown on the schedule of the broadcast. So, for the next 15 minutes or so, our guests will introduce our guests and we'll talk a little bit about the satellites that are going to be flying today. Then, 15 minutes prior to launch, we'll switch over to the SpaceX webcast. Once the Falcon 9 reaches orbit and enters into its roughly 40-minute coast phase, we'll then come back to our studio and have a Q&A with our guests where we'll talk more about the satellites and the technologies on board before switching back again to the SpaceX live feed to see the satellites actually deploy. So we've been through the schedule. Now it's time to say hello to the guests that are joining us today from all around the world. We have guests from Mexico, from South Africa, and also from the US joining us. So greetings to you all. Thank you very much for joining us and being with us here today. So, as I mentioned, there are 2 satellites launching today, the D2 Atlacom-1 and the Tiger II, and we'll hear more about them from our clients who are going to join us today, along with Brent, who's the CEO of NanoAvionics US. And Brent is now going to give us a quick introduction to NanoAvionics. Welcome, Brent.
Thanks for having me.
Brent, can you give us a quick introduction to NanoAvionics, please?
Yes, NanoAvionics can be perceived as a provider of space infrastructure. Anyone who wants to get to space in a cost-effective manner, in the easiest, most cost-effective way, whether it's utilizing it for data development, exploration, flight, we're there to provide the infrastructure to get them there quickly, cheaply, and effectively through our infrastructure that includes nanosats up to microsats.
Thank you very much, Brent, for that introduction, and thank you to all the guests who are joining us today. Looking forward to speaking to you all a little bit later in this broadcast. Now, Arnoldus, the floor is yours, and it's time for you to give us a little rundown of the type of satellite that these 2 missions are going to be using, and we have here a little mock-up of these satellites to help you do it.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So both of the satellites that we're launching today are 6U satellites. So the U in the 6th is basically the definition of the size of the satellite. where one unit is 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters. So the 6-unit satellite is around 10 by 20 by 30 centimeters, or you can imagine it as the size of a shoebox. So both of the payloads, or both of the satellites, are packed with NanoAvionics flight-proven subsystems, and of course, to operate these subsystems, we need power. So here you can see that we are using solar panels. In the D2 Atlacom-1 and OQ Tiger missions, we're actually using deployable solar panels, so you would have solar panels deploying from these faces. In order to communicate with a satellite, and of course for the satellite to transmit all the data back to the ground, we use different means of communication system. So the first communication system that we use is, of course, the UHF radio, which uses 4 monopole deployable antennas. So you can see these antennas right here. The second communication system that we use is the S-band transceiver. So why we use it is basically because it provides us with higher data rates. And the S-band antenna, and the S-band transceiver is connected to the patch antenna, which is here. Probably hard to see for you, but these are 2 main communication systems that we have. Of course, for the satellites to complete their missions, they need to know their attitude and they need to control the attitude. So for that, we have so-called ADCS system, or Attitude Determination and Control System. To know our attitude, we use a different suite of sun sensors. So in the D2 Atlacom-1 mission, we have a suite of 6 sun sensors. We have a single star tracker, magnetometers, and gyroscopes. For OQ Tiger 2 mission, the sensors are the same, but we don't have the star tracker just because it's not required there. For attitude control, both of the satellites have the same actuators, so 4 reaction wheels and 6 magnetorquers each. The only difference between these 2 satellites is very minimal. So the OQ Tiger 2 mission has a S-band transceiver which provides higher data rates, and the other difference is the thermal management systems between these 2 satellites. Now moving to the payloads and a bit more details about each of the satellites. So let's start with the D2 Atlacom-1 mission. So as Michael mentioned, it's a rideshare mission, and on board the satellite we have 4 different payloads. So the first payload is Accion propulsion system, and it's an in-orbit demonstrator mission where we'll be validating the performance of the propulsion system itself. So we will be doing different orbital maneuvers as well as validating different thrust levels. 2 other payloads that we have are from ORBCOMM. So one of the payloads is the X-band transmitter, and the other payload is the X-band patch antenna. It is also an in-orbit demonstrator, and we will be validating the high data rates of the radio. Last but certainly not least, it's an Earth observation payload. It is provided by Dragonfly Aerospace, and it's a Mantis imager. So we will be using this Mantis imager to take pictures of Earth at different locations. Now for the OQ Tiger mission, we have a software-defined radio, which basically provides global connectivity for Internet of Things. How it works, basically we have Internet of Things devices on the ground. They transmit their data to the satellite. The satellite gathers the data, it then processes it, and then sends it back to ground. So the OQ Tiger 2 mission is basically the pathfinder for the upcoming OQ Technologies constellation. So these are basically the 2 satellites, we can call them brothers almost, that we will be launching today.
Fantastic. Both really fascinating missions with really, really important and interesting technologies that are groundbreaking in many, many respects. And we'll be hearing more about those specific technologies when we talk to some of the guests who are joining us on this broadcast. That's the satellites covered, but we need a rocket to get them up into space. So Arnold, can you tell us a little bit about SpaceX and this launch which is coming up, and a little bit about some of the orbital parameters of these missions?
Definitely. So the mission that we were flying on is the Transporter-2 mission. This is the second dedicated SpaceX rideshare mission. The first one, of course, being Transporter-1. So the rocket will be launched from Cape Canaveral from Florida, United States. It's Falcon 9 Block 5 rocket. It's actually the 142nd mission for this specific rocket. The launch window is foreseen from 6:56 to 7:54 p.m. UTC. And basically, the satellites will be launched to a sun-synchronous orbit, which means of inclination of 97.4 degrees, into an orbital altitude of 525 to 575 kilometers. The orbital period is around 1 hour 35 minutes, of which 65% of the time the satellite will spend in sun, and 35% of the time the satellite will spend in the eclipse. The satellites will be flying at a velocity around of 7.5 kilometers per second, and the foreseen lifetime of these satellites is around 5 years, after which the satellites will naturally deorbit.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's very exciting to hear about this mission, about the launch which is going to take place, and now I think we're ready to go over to SpaceX, who are about to start their live stream of the launch. So we're going to take a pause here from the studio, but thank you very much for joining us so far, and we're going to give the stage to SpaceX and wait for the second stage of the Falcon 9 to reach its orbit. After that, we'll return for a Q&A session, as we've mentioned, with our guests. And then when the Falcon 9 finishes its coasting phase and is ready for satellite deployment, we'll then return back to SpaceX for that. So let's switch over now to the live stream from SpaceX.
LWO1 WeatherNet. Liftoff conditions looking pretty good.
TS is ready for launch.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
Ten, 9, 8,
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, June 30th, and we're here at SpaceX's headquarters in Hawthorne, California. You're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 3:31 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. My name is Andy Tran. I'm a production supervisor here at SpaceX. Welcome to the webcast for SpaceX's Transporter-2 mission. It's our second dedicated smallsat rideshare program launch and second launch, or 20th launch of 2021. For those of you who joined us yesterday, you know that we got all the way down to T-minus 11 seconds, but had to stand down from our launch attempt due to rotary aircraft entering the keep-out zone. We are expecting the airways to stay clear today and looking forward to having Falcon 9 deliver the 85 spacecraft and 3 Starlink satellites on board to orbit. Now this includes CubeSats, microsats, and orbital transfer vehicles, sometimes called space tugs, which will deploy their spacecraft after separating from Falcon 9. Today's launch is SpaceX's second polar orbit launch from the East Coast, and only the second polar trajectory since the late 1960s flown out of Cape Canaveral. A polar orbit is one in which satellites pass above the North and South poles as opposed to the equator. SpaceX has worked closely with the Air Force and the FAA to create a trajectory that meets the necessary safety requirements for flight. So far, everything's looking like a great day for a rocket launch at the Cape, and with liftoff in just under 10 minutes, let's take a closer look at Falcon 9. The 2-stage vehicle is standing about 229 feet tall, or slightly taller than a 21-story building. It's named after the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, and the number 9 indicates the number of Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. Today's mission is the 8th flight for this particular booster. That bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is the first stage. Its objective is to accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere to space and then separate from the rest of the rocket. From there, it will make its way back to Earth and target a landing on land this afternoon on Landing Zone 1, which is the pad that you see on screen right now. And if you're an Eastern Florida resident, you might even be able to see Falcon 9 over the ocean or also hear one or more of the sonic booms as Falcon 9 makes its way back to land. On top of the first stage is the black carbon fiber inner stage. It connects the two stages and houses the pneumatic pushers that allow the first and second stage to separate during flight. And then on top of the inner stage is the Falcon 9 second stage, which takes the payload to its eventual destination in orbit. After the first stage separates about 2.5 minutes into flight, the second stage will then carry the 88 spacecraft to orbit. Similar to the first transporter mission, we'll be flying a fuel dome payload tray, which is essentially a small platform mounted on the back end of the second stage fuel dome that will release a handful of spacecraft today. This is worth mentioning as we expect this tray to obstruct one of our 2 MVAC views during flight. At the top of the rocket, you'll notice a large nose cone. This is called the fairing. Encapsulated inside the fairing are all 88 satellites, protecting them until the vehicle is outside of the Earth's atmosphere, at which point the fairing separates to expose the satellites to space. For today's mission, our fairing is making its 3rd flight, and we're also going to be attempting to recover the fairing halves from the water following landing with our chartered recovery vessel, HOS Briarwood. The chief engineer held a technical poll at T-minus 60 minutes, and the launch director held a propellant load and launch go-no-go poll at T-minus 38 minutes. Since the T-minus 35-minute mark, Falcon 9 has been loading propellants. The vehicle is a bipropellant vehicle, which means it uses 2 types of propellants. For fuel, a refined form of kerosene called RP1, and for oxidizer, super chill liquid oxygen, we also refer to that as LOX. Currently, RP1 is fully loaded on the second stage and almost fully loaded on the first stage. Liquid oxygen loading is currently underway. We're also loading helium into storage vessels on the first and second stages. We take cold helium and run it through heat exchangers on the Merlin engines, and this hot helium is used to fill the empty volume in the tanks created by the engine pumps pulling propellant out of the stage. A few seconds ago, engine chill began. This is where we opened the pre-valves between the first stage prop tanks and the 9 Merlin engines. This allows a little bit of cold liquid oxygen to flow into the turbopumps, bringing them down to a temperature close to that of the super chill propellant that will soon be flowing through the engines at liftoff. We're at T-minus 6 minutes and 30 seconds and counting. The vehicle is healthy. We're tracking no issues so far. The range is standing by to support, and the weather is green for today's liftoff. All systems continue to be go for an on-time liftoff at 3:31 p.m. Eastern Time.
Stage 1 RP1 load is complete.
Today's launch will mark SpaceX's 20th mission of the year and the 127th mission to date. Of the 9 missions flown so far this year, 18 were on reuse booster, and will be the 8th flight for this booster flying on today's mission. Now, if you look at all of the Falcon 9 missions SpaceX has flown to date, half have been flown on flight-proven boosters. Reusability allows SpaceX to fly the most expensive parts of the rocket, which in turn drives down the cost of space access. It also allows us to increase our launch cadence and provide more flight opportunities for our customers like those on board today's mission. In fact, last year, we launched more than any other launch provider in the world. If you've been keeping track, you know our first transporter mission launched a record-breaking 143 spacecraft. And while there are fewer customer spacecrafts on board today's compared to Transporter-1, we're actually launching more mass to orbit on this mission than the previous one. SpaceX is targeting 3 dedicated rideshare flights to sun-synchronous orbits per year, and we also offer opportunities for a ride to orbit on our Starlink missions, which launch every couple of weeks. Small satellites can ride to space on SpaceX's Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, as well as Starship in the not-too-distant future. We are under 5 minutes from liftoff. Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. In a few moments here, the strongback will begin to open up its clamp arms, and once open, it will begin to retract away from the rocket to its pre-launch position, about 2 degrees away from the vehicle. And as Falcon 9 lifts off, hydraulic arms will continue to pull the strong back further away to provide clearance for liftoff. So there was the call out for the clamp arms to start opening up. They are situated right at the bottom of the fairing there. The strong back is part of the transporter erector, also called the TE. The TE's job is to roll Falcon 9 out to the launch pad, raise it to a vertical launch position, also route power, fluids, and communication to both the rocket and satellite. The TE has a launch mount that the first stage is clamped to, and the strong back that is hinged to that launch mount. And you can start to hear the hiss and pop of pressure venting from the rocket and the plumbing in the transporter erector. At this stage, the strong back should be reclined to its pre-launch position, again 2 degrees away from the vehicle. We are just over 3 minutes until liftoff. The vehicle remains in good health. The first and second stages are almost fully fueled. Gaseous oxygen is also venting from the base of Falcon 9. That is the chillin of the Merlin turbopumps. About a minute before liftoff, you will hear the announcement that Falcon 9 is in startup, which means that the rocket's own internal flight computers are now autonomously controlling the launch countdown. This is a great shot of the fairing. And inside that fairing, again, are the 88 spacecraft as part of the Transporter-2 mission. Weather remains green. The range is also standing by to support. And as a reminder, if we don't get the opportunity to launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow at the same time.
Stage 2 lock load is complete.
And there was the call up for second stage LOX loading complete. That is the last of propellant loading. Falcon 9 is now fully fueled and ready for liftoff in about 1 minute and 40 seconds. You can start to see some white clouds starting to form around Falcon 9. That is normal and expected for us at this stage in the countdown. When the dense, cold liquid oxygen meets the warmer ambient air of Florida, it begins to condense and form the white clouds that you see on screen.
Falcon is in startup.
Falcon 9 is in startup. You can start to hear some of the cheers here in Hawthorne. The first and second stages are beginning to pressurize for launch.
Falcon 9, Transporter-2, LD is go for launch.
That was the launch director giving the final go for launch. We are T-minus 30 seconds from liftoff. Let's tune into terminal count and watch as the Transporter-2 mission begins.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
First stage chamber pressure is nominal.
We are T plus 42 seconds into flight. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower, and we're currently throttling down in preparation for max Q. That should be coming up in about 20 seconds. Max Q is where the vehicle will experience the highest amount of aerodynamic pressures.
Falcon 9 is supersonic. Max Q.
And you heard the call out. We've passed the period of maximum aerodynamic pressure. Falcon 9 is now headed south along the Florida coast. All is looking good with the first stage trajectory. We have 5 events coming up in quick succession in about a minute. The first is main engine cutoff, also known as MECO, followed by stage separation, where the 2 stages will separate from one another. The first stage will then perform a flip to head back towards Florida, and the MVAC engine on the second stage will perform second engine start 1 and ignite that MVAC engine. Then the first stage will also begin its first of 3 burns, the boost back burn. And this is a view from the top of Falcon 9 looking down towards the 9 Merlin engines at the bottom of the first stage.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there you saw on screen, we had successful stage separation. The first stage started performing its flip maneuver. And the boost back burn should be ending in about 25 seconds.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
And there was confirmation of a successful boost back burn. Again, that is the first of 3 burns for the first stage. Coming up next is fairing deploy in a few seconds here from the top of the second stage.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And off come the 2 fairing halves, and they have separated and fallen away from the vehicle, exposing the 88 spacecraft to the vacuum of space. As a reminder, the recovery vessel HOS Briarwood will be attempting to recover the fairing halves today from the water. So we are about T plus 4 minutes and 20 seconds into flight. We have a couple of views on screen. On the right-hand side is a view of our second stage Merlin vacuum engine, also known as the MVAC engine. It's currently in the first of 2 MVAC burns. This burn should last for until the T plus 8 minute and 24 second mark. About another 4 minutes left on this burn. And the next milestone will be for the first stage to perform its entry burn. That's what you're seeing on the left-hand side of your screen. Falcon 9 needs to execute an entry burn to slow itself down before hitting the dense parts of the atmosphere. And without this burn, relying on the atmosphere alone to slow Falcon 9 down would put unnecessary strain on the rocket.
Vehicle is on a nominal trajectory.
The call out for a nominal trajectory. Everything's looking great so far on the Transporter-2 mission. You also notice some honeycomb-like structures have deployed on the first stage on the left-hand side. That those are our 4 hypersonic grid fins positioned at the base of the inner stage. They help to orient the rocket during reentry by moving the center of pressure. There's also some plumes of gas coming out. This is cold nitrogen gas, which helps with attitude control. Both are essential to make sure that we have a nice targeted landing back on landing zone 1 later on in today's mission. The second burn, the entry burn, is coming up in about 30 seconds. Watch for that on the left-hand side. You can also see there's a speedometer of sorts on the bottom left-hand side. That tracks the speed of the first stage, and when we begin the entry burn, we'll start to reduce the speed, and shortly after the entry burn ends, we'll hit the denser parts of the atmosphere and also begin to further reduce our velocity as the first stage continues to make its way back towards Earth.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
There's the call-out, and you can see on screen 3 Merlin engines have relit and are currently slowing down the first stage. This burn is expected to last for another 15 seconds or so.
Vehicle on a nominal trajectory.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
And successful completion of our second of 3 burns. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to be attempting to recover the booster for an 8th time back on land at landing zone 1. The first stage has 1 more burn left, the landing burn. It begins just before we touch down and provides the booster with a soft descent before we land. At the same time Falcon lands, we are expecting cycle 1 of our second stage. That's second engine cutoff. And shortly after that, we'll be entering a coast phase. And you can see the Florida coast and landing zone 1 are approaching on the left-hand side of the screen as this booster makes its attempt to land for an 8th time. This is a great shot of the first stage coming down with its landing burn.
Stage 2 internal guidance.
Stage 1, London light deploy.
That was as smooth as I'd seen it. We had phenomenal shots all the way through the landing burn. You heard the sonic booms. This booster has landed for the 8th time. That is the 89th recovery of an orbital class rocket.
Stage 1 nominal landing confirmed.
And what a way to start off the
insertion.
Transporter-2 mission. At the same time, we did have successful second stage, second engine cutoff, and confirmation of a nominal orbital insertion. We are now going to coast for the next 45 minutes or so while we wait for second engine start 2. Just a few minutes after that, we'll begin to deploy the 88 spacecraft on board this mission. We will see you back here around the T plus 53 minute and 30 second mark.
Hello and welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're tuned into our live stream of the SpaceX Transporter-2 rocket launch. The Falcon 9 rocket is now in its coasting phase, so we have some time for discussion. First of all, we want to talk a little bit about NanoAvionics and rideshare missions. So NanoAvionics supports companies during different stages of their developments and tailors the best solutions for each case, from a shared satellite service where multiple clients can share mission costs to provision of end-to-end infrastructure. Brent has joined with us now, and Brent, could you tell us a little bit about what a satellite rideshare mission is and what its benefits are? And then also tell us a bit about what companies or organizations can benefit from these rideshares.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. We do a lot of business like this where we're offering ride shares, where it makes it easier for customers to share a mission, so to speak, so they can share the costs of launch, which is usually half of the mission, where they may not want to worry about having to deal with all the infrastructure for creating a mission on their own. Ground stations, communications, licensings, all those things can be taken care of and handled at the top level by NanoAvionics. And they don't have to buy a full satellite. They only need to have part of it, like a timeshare condo, and thus where they can afford a hosting, but maybe not a whole mission on their own, or want to go to all the trouble about that. The benefits come to people who want to get a space heritage, flight heritage on new equipments that they're creating for the market to be used in space. It can be for scientific instruments development, like we're doing with NASA and other science agencies to demonstrate that new sciences can be done on that. And also, not only that new instruments can be developed and proven, but that ones that are typically done on larger platforms can be actually done just as well on smaller platforms that we offer. So there is, and then the other part is commercial entities can have their operational systems that may not take up a whole satellite, can ride along with these and share the ride, thus splitting the costs again amongst all the carriers and all the interested parties on board. We can do a full dedicated one, which is we take care of everything, provide the space infrastructure for a company if they want the whole satellite, or we can split it up amongst people to save money.
Brilliant. Thanks for that detailed explanation and loads of concrete examples of how ride shares are beneficial. Of course, in this launch, we have two different satellites, one which is dedicated and one which is a ride share. So we're seeing both of those use cases in action today. Now let's get to know a few of the people behind some of these missions, and we'll start with the Tiger II satellite. The Tiger II satellite is a dedicated mission of OQ Technologies, and I'm very happy that we're joined now by Omar Casey. Omar is the CEO of OQ Technologies. Can you give us a wave and say hi, Omar?
Hi, nice to meet you. Hi, everyone. So thank you very much for this kind intro. So I'm Omar Casey, founder and CEO of OQ Technology. And I'm very happy to join you today from the States in the show.
It's brilliant to have you with us. And let's get straight into Tiger II. So it's on its way up to orbit as we speak. Could you introduce Tiger II? We know it's not a rideshare mission, but it does have a couple of different payloads, doesn't it? So tell us about those and tell us what's new about this satellite.
Yeah, so as you know, like OQ Technology is the world's first global operator for 5G Internet of Things connectivity. So we're trying to build this hybrid system that can provide connectivity anywhere in the world for mobile IoT users by a combination of terrestrial and satellite connectivity. And the Tiger II mission is really very critical because in Tiger I mission, we did prove our technology that 5G IoT can work over low Earth orbit satellites. Now the Tiger II came really in order to address customer specific needs. So we have this pipeline of customers that now want to have a taste of this service that we want to bring to the world. And they are lining up to start this service. So we put a payload that is going to start the preliminary 5G IoT service to those users. And then we added another payload also because one of the critical aspects of the Tiger II mission is also to facilitate strategic access to very critical frequencies. And 5G, there's a discussion 3GPP of covering multiple bands. Some of these bands are also on the high end of frequency, and we were trying to get access and also test the capability in future to provide like higher data rate access to 5G for users. And so we use the opportunity because our payload, we have a 6U platform from NanoAvionics. We have a main payload for the customers, but we have enough space also to add another payload. And that's why we decided, okay, let's add this other high frequency payload, which is also dedicated for 5G, which will not be used for customers, but mainly in order to pave the way for, let's say, extra validation for future products in the 5G aspect.
Fantastic. Really exciting to see that combination of something directly for the customers now and also something that you're building and innovating for the future. You mentioned that you're the first 5G IoT operator that's building this hybrid system. Can you tell us a bit about the limitations of cellular networks that made you go up into space in the first time, and what are some of the opportunities that narrowband IoT services from orbit provide to those end users and individuals?
Exactly. So as you know, the cellular coverage is limited to where the cell towers can reach, and mobile operators during the past decades have deployed infrastructure that covers mainly urban areas. So we're talking about best case 20% of the world mass of land, but you have also the oceans which are not covered. You have the mountains, the deserts, and honestly, even in many populated areas, you still have some poor coverage. Now, with 5G coming, as you know, 5G has different services. So there's the broadband service, which is dedicated, let's say, for people, voice, video, and all that. But there's what they call now the massive machine communication. So the number of devices, sensors connecting now to the internet is increasing humongously. It's multiple times than the number of people using the internet. And it's projected to increase to 50 billion devices connected to the internet. And 5G want to address the connectivity of these devices. However, this is going to be restricted only in urban areas. And we're trying to do is really to bring this 5G massive machine communication capability and revolution into the rest of the world. For example, if we look at third world countries whose operators still are deploying GSM or let's say LTE, it will be a long time until 5G can be deployed there. What we are trying to do is really to be a global operator. We can bring this connectivity using infrastructure in the sky to everyone in the world and really democratize the access to 5G massive machine communication. And this has really big value for enterprises, for users who rely on these machine data for their operations.
Wow, that's a huge mission and a really important one that you're driving there. And clearly the importance of building that satellite network is very obvious from what you've said, but there must be some challenges that come along with implementing them. What kinds of problems did you have to solve over the years to make that narrowband IoT services from low Earth orbit possible and reliable and applicable?
Yeah, exactly. So the cellular technology is really great. It's made to address massive number of users. This is by nature. And it's global. So you have this ecosystem of users and operators everywhere in the world. It's not like a silo technology, dedicated proprietary technology. Now, the challenge when we looked at the beginning in 2017, how can we make this work on a satellite? So for a user, it looks seamless. It's as with the same chip he's using on a terrestrial network, he can use that on a satellite network, and then we'll have ubiquitous coverage everywhere. So a lot of technical challenges really, because first of the distance, imagine the cell tower now is a few kilometers away, but in this case, it's 500 kilometers away. Then the speed, so the satellite the fastest connectivity, a moving object where you could still have a good cellular communication on Earth is a fast train around 300 kilometers per hour. Here, the satellite is moving about 7 kilometers per second. It's like a bullet. So imagine you want to keep cellular connectivity while you're moving fast as a bullet and being very far away. And these were the challenges that we addressed in our patents. Then we started prototyping and working with the technical experts and the partners over the past 4 years in order to address that. And this is now being crowned with this launch of Tiger 2 to see this life coming to users. And of course, there's still a long road of optimization and developing, but we feel we're really very happy and proud of what we achieved within the past years.
Yeah, as you should be. You mentioned the users there. From a user's perspective, then, how does your service work, and who could be benefiting from Tiger 2's coverage?
Yeah, so mostly we're looking into sectors, for example, the energy and oil and gas sector. We're looking at logistics and land transport big time, and agriculture. So today, for example, if you have a fleet of trucks that you need to track and you're reliant of mobile communication, the moment you go out of coverage, you lose a signal. There's no more coverage. And if you need to have access to monitor your assets, let's say your trucks, then you'll need a satellite solution. The cheapest satellite chip available right now is $100 and up. they're very expensive. And imagine if you have like millions of assets that you need to track. This is a challenge, even thousands of assets. Now, the cellular chip is around $4 or $5. Imagine that chip now can do the same job as a satellite chip. Then you have a huge opportunity, a big market. So these users, the cost of ownership will really reduce to them. So if they are dependent on a certain operator, mobile operator, they can go out of that coverage and still be connected anywhere in the world using the same hardware they have. All they need to do is really just get the service, the megabytes per month from us, the SIM card, and boom, they are connected anywhere they go.
Beautiful. You've talked about the price point there. What other things make OQ different from other satellite IoT operators, and what kind of market and commercial opportunities are there for OQ going forward?
Yeah, so if we talk about the pricing here, really we're trying to be similar to terrestrial network pricing. Satellite has been always expensive. Prices have been high, and users have been very shy to deploy satellite service unless it's really critical. We're changing this. We're democratizing it. So we're talking really being 100 times cheaper than a new entrance into this field, to 10 times cheaper than incumbent operators. So really, like, this opens a lot of opportunity in addition to the scalability. So we are tapping into a standardized technology that exists everywhere in the world. There's 3GPP, standardized technology, cellular, 5G. So we are not coming up with a very proprietary solution that we need to build the ecosystem from scratch. Also very important, we have a frequency access, which is very critical. A lot of operators don't think about that challenge, regulated challenge. And luckily we have very good partners we work with, and we have secured that, in addition to the patents that also provide a barrier to entry. But from a perspective for users, really the low cost, the breadth of data they could have. So we can really go beyond just the simple tracking solution. We can even provide, let's say, low resolution images, voice, even low resolution video. For some applications, security cameras, border monitoring, such things are needed. So really we have a lot of advantages with what we do with respect to the end users.
Fantastic, Omar. Huge potential, and so exciting that Tiger 2 is going to be part of that process and that democratizing mission. Thank you so much for speaking to us now, and do stay with us because let's get your reaction once we see that satellite deployed.
Oh, so excited about it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. The second satellite we'll talk about today is the D2 Atlacom-1. This is a rideshare mission. It's part of an international collaboration by an international consortium and its partners, which is called Hyperactive. The consortium partners for this international collaboration are Dragonfly Aerospace from South Africa, SpaceJLTZ from Mexico, and NanoAvionics US as a supplier. The satellite hosts a hyperspectral imager, a new high-gain X-band antenna, and an upgraded X-band downlink transmitter, as well as a novel electric propulsion system. So I'm delighted to say we're now joined by Peter Kant. Peter is the CEO of Accion Systems. Say hello, Peter.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you with us, Peter, and it'd be fantastic if you could give us a quick rundown, first of all, about Accion Systems, your company. What does it specialize in, and what gets you excited about the in-orbit challenges you're trying to solve with your services?
Sure, thank you, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and we're so excited about the launch and the mission today and the maneuvers we have planned in the future. So Accion is a company we started back in 2014, spun out of MIT, the Space Propulsion Lab there by our two co-founders, Natalia and Louis. And we provide in-space propulsion for basically any type of spacecraft operating from low Earth orbit all the way to interplanetary missions. It's a novel, exceedingly safe, high thrust to power. So we provide a lot of thrust, for a very small amount of power in a very small form factor. So very small, lightweight, lots of thrust and low power. And we enable basically any type of maneuver or navigation in space for any size spacecraft.
Fantastic. And I mean, you personally, what is it about these challenges of getting into the right orbit or these maneuvers in space that's so exciting for you?
What's tremendously exciting for us is this is really the first time that our tile system has been used for true maneuvers in space of a spacecraft. And so what we'll be demonstrating is the ability to move and navigate a spacecraft, in this case, a beautiful, gorgeous NanoAvionics satellite that you have the model of sitting there next to you.
Yep.
And we will be able to move that just using accelerated ions created from a completely inert, safe, and quiet propellant. And it'll be the first time that this sort of ion electrospray will be used in space. So it's a very exciting moment, because this will be the beginning of what is truly a safe and highly efficient future for navigation in space.
Amazing. That's super exciting, and obviously a huge day for you and the company as a whole. Just for our viewers back home, the D2 Atlacom-1 satellite is actually the 4th NanoAvionics satellite that's had a propulsion on board, either a chemical or electric one. And this time, obviously, it's Accion's tile system that you mentioned. What does tile stand for, Peter?
So it's an incredibly complicated acronym. Of course, I'm kidding, but TILE stands for the Tiled Ionic Liquid Electrospray, which is, of course, descriptive of the exact technology that we're using here to create propulsion, which is ion electrospray, or accelerated ions coming from a liquid, using only electric propulsion, no chemical, no combustion. And the unique attributes of the TILE system. One is a naturally ionized propellant. It's just a liquid. You can carry it around here at room temperature. It's the same liquid in vacuum. Exceedingly simple architecture with a very small, almost the size of it's about the size, a little bit smaller than a postage stamp, our actual thruster chip. And those thruster chips are placed on the spacecraft in a completely integrated propellant tank and electronics package. Because of that, it's very simple, easy to integrate. I think the folks there at Nano, when they put the system together, would attest to that. And we don't create any, there's no pressurized gases, no huge fuel tank or propellant tank. It's all really small and self-contained within that satellite. And because of that, in addition to that small size, we pack a lot of punch into that really small package. So while we're using just a little bit of power from the satellite, we're creating a tremendous amount of thrust, which is the highest thrust to power in the industry. And all of those things combined mean that what's being demonstrated now in this NanoAvionics mission is really a new change in space navigation and availability in space propulsion. Typically, in-space propulsion was large, complicated, heavy, big tank propulsion systems that meant that propulsion was really something that was meant for large spacecraft, really large, exquisite satellites. And as NanoAvionics is demonstrating here with its elegant and beautiful small sat, that propulsion is now something that's available to all satellite and spacecraft systems. This means that we can mitigate space debris, enable precision pointing and optical communications, better pointing of imaging systems and sensors looking down at the Earth, and of course, imagers and sensors looking out into the cosmos.
Fantastic. It's amazing innovation. Could you talk us through a little bit about, obviously there are different missions that require different propulsion types, like what sort of mission envelope is TILE a good fit for?
So right now TILE it's designed to be good for just about any sort of mission, from really small orbital maintenance maneuvers all the way to interplanetary missions. And in fact, this mission itself is mimicking both small orbital maneuvers and the potential for interplanetary missions. So we're getting to run the whole gamut. But again, like anything from precision pointing, orbital changes, orbital maintenance, deorbiting, and changing between large gap changes, like going between LEO and GEO or interplanetary.
Brilliant. And you've mentioned quite a few maneuvers already. What specific orbital maneuvers are you planning to execute on this mission?
Sure. So this mission is in partnership with NASA. So we're actually doing this mission as part of a NASA program, the NASA Tipping Point program. And back in 2016, NASA did the Mars InSight lander mission, where they put a lander on Mars, and then there were 2 CubeSats that went with that lander to Mars and served as the communication relay between the lander on Mars and NASA here on Earth. But those two CubeSats used traditional chemical propulsion to maneuver. We are recreating that the maneuvers of that mission, of course, here around Earth, not over at Mars this time, but with a similar size CubeSat. And we're showing that ion electrospray can not only help, has enough capability to not only help a CubeSat in its travels to a Mars, but also would be able to do the orbital maneuvers necessary to facilitate that NASA mission. And so that's what we're demonstrating here.
Wow, amazing. So not quite to Mars today, but hopefully sometime in the future for Accion Systems.
Indeed, to Mars and hopefully even beyond.
Fantastic. Well, brilliant, brilliant thought. Thank you so much, Peter, for all of your comments and answers so far. It's a really fascinating technology that you've developed, and great to hear how it's going to be applied and how it might be applied in the future as well. Stick with us, because after the successful launch, we'll look forward to hearing a little bit more from you about your feelings on this really important day.
Thank you so much for having us here. We're so excited about today.
So I'm really happy to say that our next guest is Brian Dean. Brian is the CEO of Dragonfly Aerospace, and he joins us live from Stellenbosch in South Africa. Brian, great to have you with us.
Yeah, great to be here.
So Dragonfly Aerospace is a perfect place to understand a bit more about the D2 Atlacon-1 satellite. That's because your hyperspectral optical imager is a really integral part of that mission. So Brian, could you tell us a bit about Dragonfly, about the camera payload that you're flying on board this mission and its features?
Yeah, sure. Dragonfly Aerospace, we're an international company headquartered in South Africa. We specialize in space imaging systems, and building on the heritage and experience gained by our team over many years and over many successful microsatellite and nanosatellite imaging missions. We're now flying our new Mantis hyperspectral nanosatellite camera on the D2 mission. This camera really packs a punch with high performance in a small package. Although it's only a half view in volume, it provides 16-meter resolution across 32-kilometer swath with 160 spectral bands. It also has a large 128 gigabyte integrated data storage, removing the need for any additional mass memory on the satellite. On the D2 mission, we transmit the data directly from the camera to a high-speed 50 megabits per second X-band data transmitter provided by our partner CubeCom.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I mean, it'd be great to hear and think a little bit more about some of the applications of hyperspectral imaging, because obviously Earth observation has a really long history, but the past decade has witnessed a kind of golden era. Lots of commercial space applications designed to help improve life down on Earth. And what kind of problems can Earth observation help to solve? And what are some of the use cases for hyperspectral imaging in solving these challenges?
Yeah, if we talk about taking an image of Earth from space in what we consider to be color, what we're doing is actually measuring the reflectance of the sun's light of every point or pixel in the image in 3 colors or spectral bands, red, green, and blue. Now, with these 3 bands, we can make a pretty picture. But from information from a spectral point of view, we really only have 3 data points. Mm-hmm. Now, if we look at the Earth, each type of plant, material, and even microorganisms has an extremely detailed and distinct spectral signature in the visible and in the near infrared spectrum. This is like a spectral fingerprint, if you call it that. And these spectral fingerprints even change depending on the health of the plant or the condition of the material, whatever we're observing. Now, if you try to measure these spectral fingerprints with 3 data points, you end up having everything looking pretty similar. We can guess that green is a plant and brown is dirt and gray is rock or perhaps man-made surfaces, but that's about it really. Mm-hmm. If we increase the number of data points to 10, like the top multispectral imaging systems, then we can start to discern categories of plants and materials. But if we increase the number of data points to 160, then we can really start to tell individual plant species apart or material types from each other. We can, for instance, we can tell a bean leaf from a weed. We can tell a zinc roof from a polycarbonate roof. We can even tell two strains of two GM strains of the same plant apart, or different species of algae or bacteria apart. And we talk about the problems that hyperspectral Earth observation can solve. The list is probably endless, because you can't characterizing the whole Earth, with an enormous amount of information, and far more than we are gathering today. And one of the big advantages is monitoring biodiversity, the ability of hyperspectral systems to distinguish between different plant types, helps mapping of invasive species. Plant growth and plant stress can be monitored, resulting in optimal agricultural practices and eliminating over-fertilization and soil nutrient depletion. This is particularly useful in the increasingly important area of precision agriculture. Precision agriculture can help us to reduce the cost of food production, and by increasing yield, we can reduce the need to clear natural forests for more agricultural land, which is a big issue at the moment. And then also, hyperspectral imagery can help with pollution monitoring, disaster management. It can be used to monitor water pollution by damaged sewer lines or oil pipe leaks or chemical spills. So there's a wide range of applications. And although monitoring of urban areas with hyperspectral is relatively new and underdeveloped, if we can tell different material types apart, then we can start to develop really advanced commercial applications, particularly when you combine it with very high resolution data from an instrument such as our flagship Raptor imager.
Wow, so it's fascinating to hear the potential that you've talked about with this huge increase in data, and some of the really obvious and important use cases that we can have for this technology. Thanks so much for explaining that to us, Brian. The plan now is that we'll come back to you after we've seen the successful deployment to get a little reaction from you as to how you guys and the team feel once that camera of yours is actually in space.
Okay.
Our next guest joins us from Mexico. It's Dr. Salvador Landeras Ayala. And Dr. Salvador is the head of AEM, which is the Mexican Space Agency. Dr. Salvador, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you with us. So, our main question for you, how do you see the D2 Atlacom-1 mission benefiting space education for young people, especially regarding the construction of Mexican capabilities in the analysis and processing of satellite images? And could you also tell us a bit about your vision of Mexico as a space nation in the future?
Okay, in the first part, talking about construction of Mexican capabilities in analysis and processing of satellite image, I think that this is a very good opportunity for strengthening the human capital, forming human capital in this part, because in the all observation area or air observation applications, we have to work in two things. One is to construct the space segment, and the other one is to construct capabilities in processing, in the image processing. That is very important to have both. So for us, in the processing part, we have to strengthen that with more experts in this part. So again, this is a good opportunity to receive images and for processing them, and we have to construct this part of the air observation. In the other part, the vision of Mexico as space nation, Well, we have to work very hard in three edges, in three topics. One is the telecommunications, the satellite telecommunication part, and the other one is the air observation, and the third one is space exploration. We cannot be out of this last. We have to be in the knowledge frontiers, also working in projects in the in deep space, like the moon and Mars. As a matter of fact, we have some projects already on process in this part. And of course, we have to work with international relations in projects, in international projects, with other space agencies and with other international institutions. We have also to develop and strengthen the industrial part, to have more players from industry, and the other part is, as I said, the human capital. That's very important. So I see the future in the future to construct and launch more satellites to space in the different applications, more instruments to space. It's very important that one space agency have projects on the space, not only in projects on paper, but we have to put on the space different instruments. So that is the idea. So we have also our space centers, new space centers in 2 locations in Mexico. So with those space centers, we can make several projects like I said.
Fantastic. It's a great vision for your country and a great vision for developing those capabilities and that human capital that you talked about. We're very happy that this D2 Atlacom 1 mission will play an important role in developing Mexico's capabilities. Dr. Salvador, thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to a successful deployment of that satellite.
Thank you very much. Thank you to you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we are joined by the CEO and co-founder of SpaceJLTZ, Jose Luis. Jose Luis, it's great to have you with us. Give us a wave and say hi.
Hi, glad to be here with you.
Hi, fantastic. Thank you very much for being here today, all the way from central Mexico. Before we get into detail about your mission, let's talk a little bit about naming, because the satellite is called D2 Atlacom 1. Now, the D2 part comes from NanoAvionics. We already have one satellite up in space, which is called R2. So you can probably figure out where the name D2 came from, as somewhat space geeky culture in our company, and also as Star Wars fans, we chose D2 as the name for this mission. Could you tell us a little bit about the name of your company, JLTZ, and also Atlacom 1? Where did those names come from?
Of course. First, as you said, the D2 Atlacom 1 comes from, well, D2 from NanoAvionics, because you have already one R2 in space, and this is the D2 part. But the Atlacom, we consider that the first city in Mexico, central Mexico, who are pushing the nanosatellite industry in our country is the city of Atlacomulco. So we decided to name this mission because this is the first effort in the country, and it's an honor that we decide to give to the city to put the name in the mission. And the name of our company, the JLTZ part, is because my father, who passed away 2 years ago, he taught me to look to the stars, and this company that I founded 1 year ago, I did it in his memory, and that because I put his initials in the company as the name that we have now. That's the why of our name.
Very good. Thanks for that explanation. Could you tell us a bit more about what kind of data you're looking to gather using D2 Atlacom-1, and how are you going to be using it?
In the next years, this satellite will collect a huge amount of space data. The hyperspectral camera has 160 bands that will allow us to develop different kind of algorithm to apply to different industries like agriculture or mining or any others. In the next months, we will be working with different universities here in Mexico and the United States to develop more possible applications for this innovation.
Great, thank you. As we understand, there's a huge amount of data that's coming from these observations. How is SpaceJLTZ making these large amounts of observation data more useful, more accessible to companies, to organizations, even to individuals?
To make more easy the use of this space data, we have been developed a space app under a subscription model. This space app will allow to different users like governments or individuals or companies to have direct access to this space data and different applications to solve specific problems that they could have.
Okay, great, thank you. Fascinating role that you guys are playing in this consortium, taking that data and turning it into valuable insights that people can use. Thank you, Jose Luis, for your contribution so far, and we'll come back to you after the successful deployment to get a bit of your reaction then. So there's a lot more to the story of Atlacomulco's first nanosatellites. Along with being a demonstration for commercial space applications that benefit the Mexican economy, the project also is playing a part in knowledge transfer for Atlacomulco's future space professionals. And we're now going to move to Atlacomulco Municipality, and we're joined now by Sagrario Velasco. Sagrario, very nice to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
So, Sagrario, could you tell us how the project is connected with Polytechnic University of Atlacomulco and how it has impacted the native satellite engineering capabilities of Mexico?
Of course, our objective as a government, taking advantage of having the Mexican Space Agency Regional Space Development Center, is to be able to develop 100% space cluster, taking advantage of having 2 industrial parks in our territory. Consequently, we decide to implement an educational program in order to develop professional capacities into our students, not only for the Polytechnic University, but also for the professional education institutions in the region. This action will guarantee to our students can be considered in future space projects, and because the STEAM areas related to space issues such as mechatronics, electronics, communications, robotics, etc., these kids can apply to join the state-of-the-art technology industry we have in Atlacomulco. In this way, we can guarantee to provide qualified, well-paid labor without to depend on importing professionals from other regions or countries. This program will make companies installed in Atlacomulco more efficient by lowering cost for relocation personnel that normally comes with additional expenses such as moving, tuition, house leasing, and our 2 family trips to the original locations, among others.
Fantastic. It's great to hear that such an important mission, building up that human capital and that talent, is being supported by this mission today. Sagrario, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's been a fascinating 40 minutes talking about all of the different technologies involved in these 2 satellite missions. A huge thank you to everyone who's participated in this Q&A. It's been really interesting and engaging. And now it's about time to switch back to the SpaceX live stream to see the satellite deployment.
Welcome back to the Transporter-2 mission, our second dedicated rideshare mission. Falcon 9 lifted off at 3:31 p.m. Eastern Time from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station and had successful stage separation. We landed our first stage on landing zone 1 and successfully completed our first second stage burn. We are waiting to relight our MVAC engine on the second stage for a second and final burn. It's going to be a quick burn lasting about 2 seconds. And that should be coming up in about 15 seconds.
MVAC engine chill underway.
Nominal orbit insertion.
So we did have successful second engine start for the second time and successful second engine cutoff, and you just heard the call out for a nominal orbital insertion. So the second stage is going to coast for a few minutes before we start to deploy our satellites. And as I mentioned, this is our second dedicated rideshare mission. Our goal with these rideshare flights is to provide small satellite operators with competitive pricing, increased flight opportunities, and flexibility. These dedicated rideshare flights to sun-synchronous orbits will occur about 3 times a year, providing regular access to orbit. In addition, we also offer opportunities for ride to orbit on our Starlink missions, which launch every couple of weeks. We've launched 4 Starlink missions that include rideshare spacecrafts as well, and we're hoping to launch much more in the future. So coming up in about 2 minutes, we are expecting the start of the deployment sequence. There will be 31 deployments for 88 spacecraft, which will occur over a 30-minute period of time. This includes CubeSats, microsats, and orbital transfer vehicles, sometimes called space tugs, which will deploy their spacecraft after separating from Falcon 9, and also 3 Starlink satellites. Many of these deployments will be grouped within seconds of each other, while others may be a minute or more apart. This is a look at the order of deployments between now and the final deployment around the T+1 hour and 27-minute mark. You should hear the call out from our mission operators as each deployment happens. And to keep in mind, most of these deployments include multiple satellites. So while there are 31 deployments, at the end, we will have put 88 satellites into orbit, again, including our 3 Starlink satellites. We are about a minute away. This is a view of our second stage. And back to the animation. Several of the customers on board this mission have multi-launch agreements with SpaceX. So some of the names might sound familiar to those of you who have tuned in for previous rideshare missions. It's also worth noting that we will lose access to ground station coverage for a short period during the 30-minute window, 30-minute deployment sequence. When we reach that point, we'll let you know. And here's the view of the second stage MVAC engine. Similar to the first transporter mission, we'll be flying a fuel dome payload tray, which is essentially a small platform mounted on the back end of the second stage fuel dome that will release a handful of payloads. And as you may have already noticed, one of our 2 MVAC views is obstructed because of that fuel dome payload tray.
Acquisition of signal, Bangalore.
So we are expecting the first batch of deployments to begin in a few seconds here.
Phase 1, separation confirmed. Newsat 19, separation confirmed. First ISI satellite, separation confirmed. Tropics Pathfinder, separation confirmed. Domes 2, separation confirmed. Second ISI satellite, separation confirmed. TIVAC 0211, separation confirmed. YAM3, separation confirmed. Tubin, separation confirmed. Umbrasar, separation confirmed. Ion satellite carrier, separation confirmed.
So we saw a couple of satellites, and we got confirmation for the NASA's PACE-1, Satellogic's NewSat-19, the first ICE-I satellite from an exoport, NASA's TROPICS Pathfinder, Planet IQ's GNOMES-2, the second ICE-I satellite from an exoport, TIVAC 0211, Loft Orbital's YAM3 from an exoport, and TU Berlin's Tubin from an exoport, the Umbrar SAR, and D-Orbit's Ion satellite carrier. We were expecting to hear the call out for TIVAC 0173, so we're going to check in with the teams and see if we can give you guys an update a little bit later. Coming up, we have another batch of 5. These are going to be for the Space Development Agency General Atomics Peritons Lynx 2, Satellogic's NewSat 20 and 21, Capella SAR satellite, and the third ICE-I satellite from an exoport.
Lynx 2, separation confirmed. NewSat 20, separation confirmed. NewSat 21, separation confirmed. Capella SAR satellite, separation confirmed. Third ICE-I satellite, separation confirmed.
So we got confirmation for...
Expected loss of signal, Diego Garcia.
We got confirmation for 5 more deployments. That was the Space Development Agency General Atomics Peritons Lynx 2, Satellogic's NewSat 20 and 21, the Capella SAR satellite, and the third ICE-I satellite from an exoport. For those that are wondering, exoport is an adapter, special adapter built by our ExoLaunch customer. We are about halfway through the 31 total deployments on today's mission. And coming up, we have 2 more deployments. These are going to be for the Space Development Agency General Atomics Lynx 1, as well as the DARPA Space Development Agency Air Force Research Laboratories Mandrake 2 Able.
Lynx 1, separation confirmed. Mandrake 2 able, separation confirmed.
We got confirmation for Space Development Agency General Atomics Peritons Lynx 1 deployment, as well as the DARPA Space Development Agency Air Force Research Laboratories Mandrake 2 able. And coming up in less than a minute, we are expecting the next deployment. It's going to be the 4th ICE-I satellite from an exoport.
Fourth ICE-I satellite, separation confirmed.
And that was confirmation of the 4th ICE-I satellite from an exoport. The next batch of deployments, there's going to be 6 of them. It is for Swarm's first and second Space B cluster from an exoport, NanoAvionics D2 Altacom 1 from an exoport, Spire's Lemur number 1 from an exoport, Satellogic's NewSat-22, and Loft Orbital's YAM-2 satellite.
First Space B cluster, separation confirmed. Second Space B cluster, separation confirmed. D2 Atlacom 1, separation confirmed. Lemur number 1, separation confirmed. NewSat-22, separation confirmed. YAM-2, separation confirmed.
And we got some really cool views of the satellites separating. That was for Swarm's first and second Space B cluster from an exoport, NanoAvionics D2 Altacom 1 from an exoport, Spire's Lemur number 1 from an exoport, Satellogic's NewSat-22, and Loft Orbital's YAM-2 satellite. The next 2 deployments are going to happen during a blackout period, which means that we lose camera views and telemetry. While we wait to regain access to ground station coverage in a few minutes, sit back and follow along with our animation that shows you where we're at in the mission. We'll see you back here at the T+1 hour and 15-minute mark.
Expected loss of signal, Bangalore.
Welcome back to the webcast for Transporter-2, SpaceX's second dedicated smallsat rideshare program mission. On board this mission are 88 spacecraft, including 3 Starlink satellites. We are currently waiting to hear callouts for 2 deployments which occurred during a blackout period with no access to ground station coverage. So those 2 are Spire's Lemur number 2 from an exoport and DARPA Space Development Agency Air Force Research Laboratories Mandrake 2 Baker.
Lemur number 2 and Mandrake 2 Baker, separations confirmed.
Acquisition of signals, forward.
And there was the confirmation for Spire's Lemur number 2 from an exoport, the DARPA Space Development Agency Air Force Research Laboratories Mandrake 2 Baker satellites. Coming up, the next 2 deployments will happen a few minutes from now. Those will be for Spaceflight Incorporated's Sherpa FX2 and the LTE-1 satellites. And we're going to leave you with a short animation and sit back and follow along, and we'll see you back here once we hear those callouts.
Acquisition signal to Lee.
Welcome back once again to the webcast for Transporter-2, SpaceX's second dedicated small-sat rideshare program mission. We have two deployments coming up. These are going to be the last two for our rideshare customers. They are for Spaceflight Incorporated's Sherpa FX2 and Sherpa LTE-1. And that should be coming up in about 20 seconds.
Sherpa FX2 separation confirmed. Sherpa LTE-1 separation confirmed.
And you see on screen and heard the confirmation. We got confirmation of Spaceflight Incorporated's Sherpa FX2 and Sherpa LTE-1.
Welcome back to our live broadcast, and fantastic. We've had a successful satellite deployment. That's great news for everyone. So now two nanosatellites just like these are flying off at unimaginable speeds, getting into their orbit positions. Arnold, tell us, how do you locate such small satellites now that they've been deployed?
Yeah, so it's always nice to have a successful launch. And now actually we're moving to even more exciting part. So 4 hours after these satellites are pushed from the rocket, we will have our power system switching on. After the power system is switched on, we will have the solar panels deployment and the deployment of the UHF antennas. Everything will happen automatically. Once we have the UHF antennas deployed, we will be able to communicate with the satellite. We will be using our NanoAvionics ground stations as well as ground stations provided by our partners KSAT in different locations on Earth to try and catch the satellite. So basically what we do, we know the approximate two line elements, or we basically know the approximate position of the satellite. We point the antennas to that direction and we try to catch the satellite. Once the satellite is caught, we check the internal telemetry. So basically we check the temperatures, we check the voltages, the currents, basically everything we need to know about the satellite to validate that everything is nominal. Once that is done, what we then do, we validate subsystem by subsystem. So we take these, like baby steps. We don't jump into the full mission, but first of all, we want to check that everything's working. So we check our ADCS system, we check that our sensors are working, that our actuators are working, we check all the communications means, and once we have done that, we move to the payload validation. So all the payloads have their health check operations, so we do that, and after everything is checked, we see that everything's nominal, we then jump in straight into the missions. And for these two satellites, of course, for D2 at Acapulco, it's a rideshare mission, so we'll have different sort of operations for this satellite, and for the OQ technologies, they will go directly into their orbit demonstration.
Fantastic. Well, let's hope those next 4 hours and that catching process goes really well. You can keep up to date on these two missions via our social media feed, so do look out for the Tiger 2 and D2 Atlacom 1 satellites as they go through that process that Arnold has just described. Now let's speak to some of our guests and get their reaction on the news that we've had a successful deployment. So Omar, let's turn to you. How are you feeling right now? What are your final words or messages that you want to give out to the audience there?
I'm so excited about this, really, and it was so wonderful to watch. I'm actually on site, not too far away from the launch, and I've seen it, and the Tiger went up. It's really amazing. I can't describe this feeling. It's a changing moment for the world of telecommunication, of both satellite and cellular. And really, I'm looking forward to the first acquisition of the signal of our satellite from NanoAvionics. And really what I could say, like starting from this moment, this is a change in the telecommunications service. Mobile and satellite are not going to be the same anymore. I mean, these two worlds are merging together. And for end users anywhere in the world, really, we are looking to bridge this digital divide between urban and non-urban areas. And that is starting with our Tiger 2 mission. So I'm really looking forward to this big change and big impact that we can bring to the world.
Brilliant. Well, good luck with that mission, and congratulations to you and the team for that successful deployment. And I hope that that further mission continues successfully.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all our partners, suppliers, contractors, funders who helped us to achieve that. I'm really looking forward to continue our relationship.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Jose Luis, let's turn to you now. The satellite has deployed successfully. How do you feel? What are your final words at the end of this momentous day for us?
I feel great. I mean, it has been for the past 12 months, we have been very nervous about this. Now this is a real thing. We are part of this hyperactive consortium. Now we can call us a space company. And thank you so much for having us. And we are fully committed with this mission. And we are very happy. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast today, and big congratulations to you and all the team for the successful deployment. Let's turn to you now, Brian. Let's hear your reaction. What are your final words for this broadcast, knowing that your camera is now out there in space?
Yeah, I can't be happier, really. It's such an exciting mission to be part of. And it's, this first step of deploying is one step on the way to, operating this satellite in orbit and, getting back all this great data that we're hoping to get. So, first step done. Super happy that the first step was successful, and looking forward to ticking off the next steps as we go along.
Amazing. And a massive congratulations to you and all of the team at Dragonfly Aerospace. Well done.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're glad to be part of this mission.
Great. So Peter, let's turn to you for a moment. As we've heard, the deployment's been successful, and now the satellite with your tile system is out in space as we speak. How do you feel at this moment? What are your kind of final thoughts from this broadcast?
No pun intended, but we are just over the moon. This is so exciting. It's hard to believe that just back in 2014, when Natalia and Louis were inventing this technology in their lab at MIT, to the 45 employees who have been instrumental and key to getting to this day. It's just an amazing, exciting moment here at Accion to see something that we built and the whole team has spent years putting together is now orbiting Earth and active in space.
Brilliant. Congratulations to you and all the team. So happy that it's gone successfully.
Congratulations to NanoAvionics and the whole team as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Peter. That sounds great. Sure. And thank you to all of our guests and viewers for joining us today. Thank you, Arnold, for being a brilliant technical sidekick during this broadcast. It's been a real pleasure to have you here. Please do follow NanoAvionics and all of the customers that we've mentioned and talked about today on their social media channels, so you can keep up to date on the Tiger 2 and D2 Atlacom 1 satellite missions. And there's going to be other upcoming launches as well. But for now, that's everything from us today. Goodbye, and look forward to seeing you next time.